Hello, everybody. Hope all of you are doing well, though you're locked down. We are very glad to be here with a great panel of the most leading and experienced clinical nutritionists here from India. And boastfully, they are one of the best in the country. And to begin with is Dr. Salome Benjamin. She has worked for almost more than 4 decades actually in the field of nutrition. Uh, she has actually practiced for a long time in a hospital setup with KM Hospital and the Nair Hospital. Her stint has been very respected in this field, and she's currently actually practicing at the Jupiter Hospital, also doing OPD nutrition. Followed by we have Dr. Geeta Dharmati. She is MSc Dietetics, PhD in nutrition, and she also is a nutrigenomic diet expert. Next, we have Neeti Desai. She is a very leading consultant nutritionist, and she's actually worked through the years through tough times to great times of nutrition in South Bombay. We are very glad that she's here. She's actually even trained and experienced abroad. Apart from that, we have our front end brave warrior, I would say, and that is Dr. Jayashree Deshpande. Dr. Jayashree Paranspe, I'm sorry. And she is currently at the Nair Hospital, and she is fighting for the COVID patients there. So very glad to be a part of this esteemed panel as the moderator. And before we go to the program, I'd just quickly like to introduce why we are actually doing this program. As you all know, True Wealth is an integrative healthcare initiative guiding patients and healthy individuals to overcome their health concerns and manage self-health to reach the ultimate goal of holistic health and happiness. True Wealth aims to help you separate science from the hype by sharing authentic knowledge and wisdom from healthcare and nutrition stalwarts so you can make the right health and nutrition choices. It also desires to unleash the therapeutic role and potential of nutrition in curing and preventing the diseases of today, which even modern medicine is unable to partly or completely able to treat. And TrueWell's ultimate goal is to provide integrative and personalized health and nutrition advice to achieve health and happiness. Before we go over to the program, just a quick input, and that is that this Facebook Live program is organized to get more information and guidance to keep health, nutrition, and fitness during the lockdown. The recommendations made by the speakers and other participants cannot be treated as consultation. For personalized consultation, you can actually reach us on 9820048369 or visit our website www.truewell.in. To ask the questions, also you can use the same number 9820048369. Else you can type the questions into our Facebook page right now to ask your questions. And for personalized consultation with these nutritionists, we can actually get you in touch with them as well. You can feel free to ask as many concerns as you have, and we'll try to do more than justice for it. However, please remember that there's no COVID related, this isn't really focused on COVID, treatment of COVID. And for that, you need to approach your hospitals and doctors assigned by the authorities to get the authentic information on COVID. I'm going to briefly play the profiles of each of these nutritionists for you to dwell on. As I mentioned, Dr. Salome Benjamin is almost more than four decades of experience in this field. She has extensive, I would say, not just experience but wisdom on that front. And this is so much that she has actually done in various fields of internal nutrition, hypertension, wellness, epidemiology, and much more. She has also actually has an MBA in hospital administration from the Bajaj Institute of Management Studies. That's really credible. We have Jayashree Paranspe. She's a senior registered dietitian, and she's currently the treasurer of the Indian Dietetic Association Mumbai chapter. So you can see her extensive experience. We have Dr. Geeta Dharmati. from Pune. She also has loads of experience for now almost more than 2 decades. So that's her. In various fields she has worked through. And we have Dr. Neeti Desai. She is from Mumbai again, and as I did introduce her, she has actually uh, she right from medical nutrition to treating or being an official nutritionist to Femina Miss India. She has done multiple various uh, activities in the field of nutrition. So on that note, I would actually present all of them to you. And we are so glad to have all of you here. Thank you very much for agreeing to, be here and participate with us, because I know some of you have been also extensively working, plus doing a lot of work aside so that it can actually help your patients and to reach them and give them support and guidance. Through all that tough and difficult times, we have you here, and uh, we are here to actually emphasize to people the fact that and we don't need to emphasize it, right? Isn't it now? Because nutrition has suddenly gained so much of importance, and Dr. Benjamin will agree with me, because she has she has given her life to this. Probably the wisdom that's dawning us today, that in these tough times when medicine, vaccine, nothing is available, what is suddenly dawning to us is to start looking inside within, and then it's genetics, environment, and nutrition. That's what our phenotype is. But when we can't do much with our genetics, and really can't do anything with our environment right now, what can really help us is purely nutrition. Madam, we would like you to start with, and sort of walk us through. It's more than 4 decades that you've been working in this, and how has it been in nutrition? How was it 4 decades ago, and how has it progressed? I don't know what was the acceptance at that time, then later, and today. What do you think? And share your thoughts and experiences, please.
Thank you, Rajeshri, and good evening to all of you, both participants and the speakers. And I'm very glad to be here on this platform to share my experience or to talk to you about nutrition. Yes, when I started my journey way back, nutrition education way back in 1971. I mean, the word nutrition was very small. People didn't know nutrition. People didn't know the relation of food and nutrition. Food, yes, we all are, in fact, born to eat and have a desire to eat. That's our human being. Because when a child is born, cries for food, and that's the first food that he gets is a milk. So that is basically how we started. But in this entire journey, it has now evolved as a fundamental science. Not only fundamental science, but it is a therapeutic science, evidence based science related to overcome, combat, or treat clients or a different disease with nutrition. It's become a key or a cornerstone of management of many diseases. So nutrition is not only for fitness, not only for health. Yes, for health being right from the baby's born to the you go like womb to tomb, nutrition is required, and also for fitness. Now we have really evolved as a fitness science nutrition, and there are different components involved for fitness. Different components involved when we look at health, a good health. Now, health is not only physical health, it is physical health, mental health, and the well being. So, where physical and mental health, even for mental health, nutrition is key. There are certain nutrients which are key for mental health. And also, specifically, there are particular nutrients now in this era we are using as drugs. So, nutrients as drug or pharmaconutrition is the concept we have reached. So, it's a long way we have come up to this concept. Yes, in those days when the pharmacology started, pharmacopoeia, they were using components of nutrition or say multivitamins, multiminerals as a therapy. But then it was not given a due importance to come from a basic food items. Whether this is coming from a food item, they were extracting it and giving it as a nutrient as drug. But now we are looking at the total wholesome nutrient as a, even the World Health Organization, FAO, and all the organizations have accepted this fact that food-based approach is the right approach to meet the need of the present, or to meet the fitness need or a health need, both physical and mental health. So if we have to look at it, like we have components of carbohydrate, protein, fat, the macronutrients, then we had a the micronutrients, vitamins, minerals, trace elements. Now we have included water and fiber also as a nutrient, which was not considered as a nutrient, but the role has such an evolved. It it is not only a nutrient, but it is also used for a treatment part. So that's why the nutrition or a nutrient, or you can say there are nutrients given names like cardiac nutrients, immunonutrients for different health, for different condition. So there are respiratory nutrition. There are different condition like infectious for fighting the infection. We say in Marathi or Hindi, your rog pratikarak shakti. So any disease you can fight with a food-based approach which contains wholesome nutrients. So this is how the nutrition is evolved, and now we have evidences, we have research, we have randomized controlled trials which have confirmed the role of nutrition as a drug, role of nutrition in fitness, role of nutrition in immunity, and not only the this, but as prevention aspect. How can we prevent ourselves from getting sick? So that's the basic things. Yes, there are two types of the immunity, which is innate, intuitive, and acquired. Now we are in this era. We have failed in acquired nutrition immunity. That is the vaccine. We don't have any vaccine to treat current condition, and therefore the entire diversion is towards the nutrition, because we have to deal with now our innate natural immunity to fight this infection. Yes, you can ask questions.
So that was this was amazing in-depth answer, and ma'am, this is something which we really appreciate. And so yeah, just a personal question though, as to when you were practicing this, and I think even we would like to hear that from Niti Desai, that you have actually worked in those days when this was never given that seriousness, and sometimes we think that not even that much of respect. But how was it? And I mean, how did you gather that kind of belief and keep that faith and trust going in those times? Because and where what was it that really got you completely into it? Because that kind of a wisdom in those days when no one was even talking about it or accepting it. But of course, like ma'am said, ahar vihar and samskar, or whatever we had in our tradition. Was it that, or was it something else that actually really brought you to this field?
I don't think so. Actually, we as a professionals have really worked hard to prove ourselves,
Yeah.
to show the outcome.
Yeah.
It is an outcome-based approach. When you in the people working professionals, doctors and other professionals show the result of a particular application of a nutrition therapy,
Yeah.
as a say prevention or as a treatment, and then they realize it was a very hard pathway, because when I joined in 1978, the dietitian name nobody knew. What is
Yeah.
dietitian? What is their work? They were only confined to the kitchen. Okay,
Yeah.
just planning menu, distributing food, weekly menus and things like that. The therapeutic approach was coming up, but very slowly. But still, the due importance of the science and to this professionals of nutrition was not given. It was, of course, a very long struggle how we have brought the nutrition, to this cadre, or upgraded it to this status, because we were always looked down. But then when we said, uh, give me a chance, let me do this, let me change the way we eat, let me change the way we make our food or way we serve our food, and that makes a difference. So when it was given to us, and when we did actually, the outcome which came, that opened the eyes of the other professionals, and said, no, no, this is something much more than the, what is required. It is a therapy, it is an integrative approach, a holistic approach with a medicine, modern medicine, or say the other allied medicine, and then only we can combat prevention and the disease treatment together. So then they realize the team approach, and they realize the importance by seeing the improvement or the outcome on a particular condition, or say even for a babies. Now babies were also, it was, we the nutritionists always said that feed the baby initially, first day when the baby is born, first hour, put the child on the breast of the mother, and then that colostrum, which is a natural immunity.
Yes.
That's, we are not born with immunity. We are not born. But when we drink mother's milk, and when we drink that colostrum, which is full of immune, ingredients or the components, and that's how the child who comes in this world gets the immunity to fight the disease, to for the prevention. In same way, this is very important when the adolescent girl who is growing up, so this concept came, all the science changed, not only to the only disease, but to the maternal nutrition, the fetal nutrition, how we can improve and change the generation which comes out, and they become more immune prone, or they have a better immunity when they come into this world. So it began in the early years of girl's life and adolescent, 13 years when the girl menarches. That is the time, if you give them good nutrition, they can bring a good offspring, and they become a good fighters for the disease, or say the prevention and for treatment. So this is how it evolved, this science. And then people have realized that this is the total approach. We don't do only food-based nutrition approach. It's a therapy. It includes lifestyle change. It includes immune enhancing foods. It includes exercise, and it includes counseling. We
Yeah.
are also doing our behavior modification, psychological aspect, and that is changing the entire, the mindset of the people,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that has brought the change.
So on that point, I would like to ask Neeti Desai, because ma'am did refer to me earlier that when she used to know you long years back, your father was a very strong believer in nutrition, and he probably said to her that you need to also get into deep into it as much as ma'am probably at that stage was, and so how has it been a journey? Because I know that you also practice nutrition very actively, and your husband also is a very leading orthopedic surgeon. So we have this thing where how would you talk about doctors having a lot of faith in nutrition, because that is normally, I mean, before we get to our topic, that's a complaint, and how are patients and the doctors sort of accepting nutrition more? Like ma'am said, nutrition comes from the beginning when you're born, from childbirth and from your mother. It starts really there. So immunity building starts there. So your input on it, and I think then we'll go to the topics.
Right. Thank you, Rajashri, for having me on this platform. And Salome ma'am actually is my teacher as well. So my senior. So she's like more like a mother of nutrition in dietetics in India.
Yeah.
So yes, it has been a long and arduous kind of trek because initially the doctors, the medical professionals did not think much about dietitians or nutritionists. They were kind of holed up in the kitchen where the doctors would give a prescription and you're supposed to just whisk that formulation up and provide it to the patient and make sure that it tastes good and its hygiene is, all right. I mean, our role was kind of limited to that. They did not actively involve dietitians into the medical nutrition or medical therapy or medical treatment. Slowly, as we kind of got more, we were always knowledgeable, but perhaps I would say more confident about ourselves. We honed our skills. We were able to stand up to their all their questions. In fact, we went one step further where very often we had to correct them because actually in medical school, nutrition is not a subject. So, they would give a prescription of give 6 grams of protein in 1400 calorie diet. I mean, so it was absolutely way off. But yes, slowly and steadily, we kind of built up our confidence. We built up our skills. And I think we've come a long way. And even with respect to patients, when, a young dietitian sits across a patient who is, say, a diabetic since 30 years, it's an uphill task because the patient is thinking in her mind, what is this 20-something or 30-something going to tell me, advise me when I've lived with this condition for 30 years? And they would not even give you an eye contact. They're just there because they've had to be there. But 30 minutes down the line, when suddenly things start making sense to them, and then you can see that they're very receptive, and then they come back with good results. So yes, it has been an uphill journey, but I think we've come a long way, and here we are. I think we're all doing well.
So I think I'll straight get to the topics that are actually sort of our main concern to our people who are sitting at home suddenly into a lockdown. And pain has been one of the most major things for people who are working from home and women who are actually working from home, as well as they are working at home. So, and there's no support system really from all ends. So it's becoming very, very difficult. And so in these kind of conditions, and especially, when there is hardly anything to eat, and so gut health is also taking its toll. I would sort of straight down go out and ask Geeta ma'am as to what her inputs, what is she thinking, because of course we don't know what we are eating, whether we are eating it safe, and then is it getting digested, because I think these are the major concerns people are having right now. And food has suddenly become a center of attraction, because we can't think of anything, then we can think of only food. So tell us a little bit more. What's your experience and what would you advise in this situation?
Yeah, thank you, Rajeshri, for having me here with stalwarts like Salome ma'am, Neeti, and Jayashree. My due respects to Salome ma'am. Definitely, we look up very high to her, and it was wonderful listening to her journey and Neeti's input to it. Coming back to the topic of nutrition, which you wanted me to highlight about gut health and lockdown. So lockdown means we are confined to a place, so mobilization has reduced. I look food two ways. For me, food is also a feel-good factor. Basically, when you're posting what we make on the Facebook or in social media, it means it makes you feel good that I have made this dish. You actually feed your own people, and it makes you feel good about it. So feel good definitely gives you a good hormone of dopamine and serotonin and makes you feel good. The other side of the story, if you look at it, that if you are gaining weight, because you have to now start asking yourself intake and expenditure management, energy intake, energy expenditure. If you're not mobilizing much, if you're not moving much, why am I eating so much? So this equation, I think we fail to understand, because Indian food are made for taste and satiety. So that I think people should start knowing that mobilization is not there, activity is not much, and portions and the calorie density of the food has increased. And that one fine day when you're not wearing pants nowadays, but when you start wearing your pants and your outside clothes, you start realizing that you have put on a wrong weight, especially your abdominal weight. So energy intake is something which I think we should make more emphasis on. Second, for gut health, I feel our gut motility is at stake because we are not mobilizing and we are eating a lot of calorie dense food. That means if I eat a high fat food or fried food, for example, if I eat a good meal like dal chawal, because generally we are used to eating a small meal, we are carrying tiffins with us, or we generally skip meals also. That activity has suddenly changed to full meals, like we're eating everything in the meal. So if I'm eating so much of food and I'm eating calorie dense food and fat food and I'm not moving, I think my gut motility becomes very, very weak. And if my gut motility becomes weak, I'll get challenges like constipation, bloating, distension, gases. And many of us are facing these challenges of gut motility because we are not mobilizing. So it comes down to ghar ka khana, which we all are eating, which is the one of the best thing which this COVID has given us, lockdown has given us. But in ghar ka khana, we should concentrate that what is the portion of each food. We need a balance of every food in it. And two is, I think we need to look at food which is easily digestible. So I look at food which is easily, which is not a very high fiber, not a very high protein, not a very high fat, because all three messes up with your digestion. So dal, chawal, sabji, roti in a balanced amount will take good care of your gut motility. But remember that we need to mobilize. Once we mobilize, when like energy expenditure, the gut motility, most of it will be taken care of. Eat adequate, the plate factor, eat good vegetables, cooked vegetables. Don't eat a bowl of salad or four. We need 400 grams of vegetables a day. That doesn't mean I have to finish 400 grams in one go. So that concept, I think high fiber, high protein in one meal will mess your digestion. But the fact is two things. One, we are not moving. Two, we are emotionally stressed also, or we are actually not looking at a different angle of our lifestyle.
So that actually in an order sort of goes back to Niti. My question there would be, then how do we utilize the food for actually maybe curbing inflammation and taking care of pain? Would you recommend any sort of specific foods based on following up with what Geeta ma'am just said? I think, what's your suggestion? Because people have varied views about anti-inflammatory food. There is a lot of confusion. Some websites say that some foods are good, and then again, this is why I'm mentioning websites, because people are looking at websites and that's how they decide that. That's how they think they have to decide their food and therapeutic needs of food also.
Right. So yes, I think in the current times, there are a couple of issues which have kind of cropped up big time. One, as you said, is kind of fatigue, especially I guess for the women folk more so, because there is additional work which has kind of been added. So it is not necessary that one needs to have a very elaborate kind of a meal to get your dose of all nutrients or anti-inflammatory kind of foods. You could do even a one-pot meal, something as humble as khichdi, where you do more of dal, less of rice, and put in a lot of vegetables. It could be a absolutely wholesome meal, which will not add a lot of calories, but it will give you the full complement of all the vitamins, minerals, and anti-inflammatory foods. Anti-inflammatory foods, I mean, there are some very humble foods which are lying on our kitchen shelf, which we just need to include in our diets and could be useful. Perhaps most of us know about turmeric. It's been in the news big time since a couple of years. We have been using turmeric for centuries, but it's only when the Western literature came up proving its benefits that it has regained the hype. So yes, turmeric, there are issues there about its bioavailability, how available it is when you just have our turmeric haldi as our masala. But turmeric, ginger, garlic, lot of people in fact avoid tomatoes. They avoid brinjal because they think these cause inflammation. These are kind of myths. These could definitely be included. All the nuts, any foods which give you the good fats, the monounsaturated fatty acids. So using a bit of olive oil, doing a bit of avocado, doing all the nuts, almonds, walnuts, pistachio. These are some simple foods which most of us have in the house. Also, just including any dark colored, deep colored fruits and vegetables. Just now, when the availability is an issue in some, certain areas, just make sure that your plate is basically like a rainbow plate. You don't need to stick to only aloo ki sabzi. Just
Yes.
include a variety of fruits and vegetables, and you've done your job.
Yeah, and I'm sure the viewers here are smart enough, because you know how we could consume on some safe fruits. You know, fruits are a lot safer also at this time. And chronologically, I think that then the question to Jayashree ma'am is that, you know, when it comes to food, and then you know, in such kind of situations when food is probably scarce, do you think any therapeutic nutritional ingredients kind of play a role here? And is there, you know, ancillary to it, is there a lot of evidence? Because that's another question. But if in first place, are there any such ingredients you could recommend to us?
Yeah, thank you, Rajeshri, for inviting me. Basically, today again, I will go back to Benjamin ma'am. We have learned our nutrition from her, and I've worked with her for last
Wow.
25, 26 years.
Yeah.
Anyway, coming to today's, your question.
Yeah.
Now, we have been talking about this unusual situation that we are in, and Geeta spoke about digestion, which being a major issue
Yeah.
because of the mobility. Now, because we do not have the mobility, besides digestion, we also have issues with our skeletal system. Okay, so many of us have been, our patients have been complaining about back pain, leg
Mhm.
pain, knee pain. All these problems are also there. So, what I would like to add here is, when you are talking about balanced nutrition, having all food groups as part of your meal, healthy diet, all that is okay. What
Yeah.
I'm going to say right now might be little controversial, not really controversial, but what I want to make point here is कि right now is the time when we are going to need some supplementation to our diet to get all our micronutrients added to it. Because although we may want to include all the food groups in the diet, but because of these challenging conditions, when vegetables and fruits are not available in adequate quantity, even when milk may not be available, or it might be available in limited quantities, but this is the time when we will get our micronutrients from supplementation, and we should not hesitate from taking these supplementation. Because if you know, right now it is either a vegetable vendor or the pharmacy. That is the only these are the only two types of
That's available.
yeah, shops which are open. So yes, supplements have do have a role during these challenging times. Now, if we are talking about musculoskeletal health, then we have to talk about uh, calcium, vitamin D. Now, I have been reading up this very webinar, and there is lot of evidence, lot of trials which have been done on various other various foods which have been used, which have a role to play in musculoskeletal health. Anything like fish oil, krill oil,
Yeah.
and glucosamine, conandrin, vitamin D, E, collagen, to name a few. Now, right now, Niti spoke about curcumin. Yes, curcumin has been, there have been lot of studies, but again, the problem is of poor bioavailability and poor absorption. But if you are going to use curcumin, if you
Yes.
use it along with pepperin, which is present in our pepper, that is miri, kala miri, it improves its bioavailability.
Yeah.
So basically, you have to think about how to mix, these nutrients to make it available more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
y-
No, go ahead.
huh.
Complete.
No.
Yeah. So I'm going to take this to Benjamin ma'am, because for her input in terms of, you know, when we're saying, or I know she extensively has a lot of clinical observations and a good amount of trials also in this field. So how does the evidence work in terms when Jayashree ma'am just said about these ingredients that she mentioned, how effective are those? And plus, because I'm also boastfully working on some of these ingredients. We've done observation studies, and there is it's very difficult to do trials in food. It's not that we don't want to do them, but it's very difficult to actually narrow down and pinpoint that the effect is coming from what. So do tell us what you think about these supplements, and especially because we are in these times where, or is it that otherwise also, even if you're not in these times, they are effective?
Ma'am, unmuted. Ma'am, you to unmute.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not one particular ingredient which is going to give us immunity. It is the whole total nutrients, wholesome. As Niti spoke, a wholesome meal. So we Indians, for that matter, are much beneficial because we do have a wholesome meal. We do use the spices in our day-to-day meal to enhance the bioavailability of one nutrient to other. There are nutrient reactions, there are drug nutrient reactions, and there are other chemical reactions occurring in our gut and our system, and that affects our bioavailability of these particular nutrient. So when you talk about evidence, when I say if you want to give supplements, we must always concentrate on giving protein supplements. Indian population, in my such long journey, I must have not come across one person consuming 1 gram per kg body weight protein. Okay. It was always 0.4, 0.5, or at the most 0.6, which is quite low. So protein is one thing which gives us immunity, which builds immunity. So this is what we need: protein, carbohydrate, the macronutrient. These curcumin or ginger or garlic, whatever functional food or adjunct or additives we call, these are adjunct or additives, cannot be a main source of therapy. So the main source of therapy comes from all the macronutrients, which in part does have these micronutrients and trace elements in it.
Yeah.
Like if you say protein amino acids, in the class of quality of protein is important. What quality and quantity, and then it should have all the essential amino acids. So if one essential amino acid is missing in one food, you have combined with this. But a milk protein, like it has all the essential amino acids, plus it has a whey property, and we all know that it's a very potent, immune enhancing protein, the whey protein. It has so many components like globulin, immunoglobulin, and alpha globulin. So these all add into immunity. That is why when we treat an individual in absence of food, or we are not able to give fruits and vegetables to a very sick patient, then you add these supplements. So now if we have a scarce quantity of vegetables, of course it is available. All the governments have made assurance and supply to fruits and vegetables are available. So I think it is available, but still if we feel that we need to add protein supplement, and not only particular curcumin or any other ginger or garlic. So when we add protein, which will give you carbohydrate, energy and fat and all other nutrients, plus it will also give you your vitamin E, vitamin C from if you give a fruit along with milk products. So that can have the total immunity can be enhanced with protein foods, and with your vegetables. You can have a serving of vegetables or a serving of fruits. So if you want to increase an immunity in scarcity of food, you can use oral nutrition supplements which are containing good amount of good quality proteins. I mean complete protein. So that is we have many randomized control trials to prove this. But if you see trials or evidence for this, now this curcumin is also again lipophilic. It dissolves only in fat, not in water. So you need to take it with milk. and you cannot take it with anything else. So like that, different these functional foods have their own limitation. So that's why it should be along with the total food, not as one particular. So we do advise our patients or who cannot eat this wholesome food, supplements which will also give this wholesome nutrition.
Yeah.
So,
Can I just add to what ma'am just said about these functional foods? See, you cannot use it really as a therapeutic agent. Like when I was reading through all the clinical evidence shows that all these functional foods, the evidence is from low to moderate, right? Except for calcium and vitamin D. Again, when you are taking calcium and vitamin D, there are many factors which affect the absorption. So it is just not that you are taking a supplement. Problem right now is these supplements, especially like calcium and vitamin D, is available over the counter. So what happens is, and they are most popular, supplements. So people just go and purchase it, like Limlet Kagoli, that kind of thing.
Yes.
There's always a chance of over consumption without giving a thought that there might be some other factors in the food, as ma'am said, that you have to keep it in mind that that particular supplement you are taking with what drug nutrient interaction it is going to have with that particular nutrient. So that is one of the point. I will, if I get time, I will elaborate little more on calcium supplementation, but you can go ahead and somebody.
So the typical thing that the kitchen counter and the pharmacy counter, and we think these days that we are wise enough to pick the right foods either from our kitchen, and otherwise we are wise enough to pick anything from the counter. I'm being a little sarcastic really out here, because I've seen that people just think that when it comes to food, they know everything. And towards the end of the program, I'm definitely going to take a pick the closing remarks on this from you, because where and how people should focus on, come to you, and why they need to take advice from us, and how personalized and interactive it is, and I will come to Geeta ma'am on that a little bit, because we did speak about all this nutrition, and when the nutrients are unavailable, how do we address them? But at times we now have the nutrition available, but the nutrition to get converted into the available nutrients, how is the digestion? I mean, what are the food ingredients that we can actually utilize for better digestion? And if like Jayashree ma'am said, right now it's not sufficient. So in these kind of cases, is any supplementation advisable, or what type of enzymes would you suggest?
Yeah, basically digestion is purview of one's lifestyle nowadays. Mobilization is the major factor which we discussed. Second is, I think, stress, emotion, all that contributes to also indigestion, because we don't really look at that point of view that mental health contributes to, because gut and mind are absolutely closely related. More stress, more cortisol generation, more parasympathetic nervous system. So more challenges with your gut.
Yes.
The third one, I think, is behavior modification. So I think all of us agree with it. When any patient comes to us, when he complains of acidity or any kind of a gut challenge, we start counseling on style of eating, eat slowly, chew 32 times, or all these things. Like, we start looking at behavior modification of a person and identify what are the challenges in his food. So detailed recall of that person is important. As you said, food is very personalized, nutrition is personalized, nutrient based nutrition is also personalized. One size doesn't fit for all. I do a lot of molecular nutrition, and I know that this makes sense, that when I say that if you can eat dal, the other person may not be able to digest dal. So it is important that we understand the difference between why he is able to and other person is not able to, and identify what are the factors why he is not able to. It can be genetic or it can be environment. Environment is mind, activity, lifestyle, and number of things. So we just cannot know. Coming to therapy of how to work on digestion, which is your actual question, are there any enzyme which will help me to digest my food? I think as a dietitian, we don't recommend any enzymes as such. That we have fat digestive enzymes, Creon, which is coming for pancreatic patient. We have a lot of antacids and all, but I think they are all medical prescription. They are not nutrient-based prescription, which we are working on. But looking at a enteral factor, like when we look into a hospitalized patient and when we have a challenge with digestion, there are few nutrients which work on gut integrity. Gut integrity is your motility of the gut, digestion of the gut, improving the nutrition which is present in your food. My food has very poor iron. I'm a vegetarian. But if I'm an iron deficit or anemic, my body has to learn to absorb whatever iron I am eating. So this is beautiful adaptation of our body which God has given us. So there are few nutrients which work on absorption. Glutamine is one of the conditional amino acid. Amino acids of essential, non-essential, and in that glutamine is one of the conditional amino acids. There are supplements available of glutamine. Food has glutamine. All protein, which as Madam was saying, protein support is important because they have this kind of amino acid profile. They help you in very good gut integrity. So that's one. Two, pre and probiotic combination. Because probiotic, my gut flora is very, very individualized. What I have cannot be replicated. So giving curd may not work most of the times. My body makes its own gut flora. So I have to concentrate on vegetables and fruits, as Neeti mentions, that it should be a colorful or a rainbow plate. The only goal behind it is I should have adequate prebiotics in my diet. You get a prebiotic support like inulins and a lot of other FOS in the market as a supplementation. You also get a probiotic support, but I believe in prebiotic support because my gut makes its own probiotic. That also helps me in gut integrity. And finally, what kind of food I am eating, a complex food, fibrous food, very high protein, undigested protein food, processed food, like I have this ready-made cereals. They have a lot of fructose starch, high fructose cornstarch. So these kind of foods like sugar and processed food also impair my digestion. As a dietitian, as a nutritionist, my first goal is identify the factors which is creating indigestion, mind to behavior to food, work on behavior modification in digestion. It can be exercise or eating style or habit. Third is look at the nutrient-based nutrition, which I said I have few nutrients like glutamine, prebiotics, which work on better gut integrity. When I say gut integrity, it means absorption and digestion.
That's super input, and I totally totally agree with you on that. And I'll quickly go over to the next question because there are some questions coming from the audience as well. Jayashree ma'am just mentioned that this is probably the right time, and I know we are talking a lot about supplementation today, but Jayashree ma'am, not many times, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, Geeta ma'am, that how open are people to supplementation? Because but Jayashree ma'am said that this is probably the right time to look at it. And as a corona warrior, I mean, please share your experience. When it comes to supplementation and how it is critical right now, and how you're actually making so much of effort to get for the patients to get it so that they will get better.
No, if my experience is if you counsel your patient, if you try to make them understand these are your challenges, this is your deficiency, and you need to work on it. Effective counseling, and there's definitely a change in an attitude of every personality. Doctors are giving importance to nutrition. They do emphasis that what the dietitian tells you should be adhered, then only it will be beneficial for you. So the personal experiences, it goes very well when we advise supplementation or when we identify the need of supplementation. And I'm sure all the qualified people definitely identify the need when there is a need. We just don't prescribe if there is no need.
Yes,
I think that makes
absolutely right. So Jayashree ma'am, your view on it, because I know you have a similar but extensive view, and please share the front end examples or cases with us, because that will make people realize that how important it is, how nutrition and both supplementation is equally important.
Yeah, before I share my experience, I want to say that we all, whoever is present here, are not here to kind of promote supplements.
Yes.
It is just that whenever it is needed, whenever it has any therapeutic role, so that is the time it should be used judiciously and only by a qualified person. right?
Yes. Yes.
You asked about acceptability of supplements. I will tell you, things are changing so much that nowadays it is, patients who are asking for supplementation. All these young boys, young girls, they want to have protein supplementation. Rather, they are advised protein supplements in the gym, which is not advised by a proper qualified person. So the
Yes.
thing is, acceptability of supplements is no more an issue. Problem is to use, in a correct dose and at the right time, and to use it as a therapeutic nutrition. It is
Yes.
especially the
Yes.
hospital nutrition is called medical nutrition therapy. Okay.
Correct.
Now,
Yeah.
as far as dealing with COVID patients are concerned, it is highly contagious disease, right? So, keeping that in mind, when we are planning, especially the enteral feeding for these patients, earlier for our enteral feed patients, as you all are aware, our patients are not very I mean, they come from lower socioeconomic class or who cannot really afford these supplements. But right now is the time when, and that is why we used to give them in-house formulas which are tailor-made for each individual patient's needs. But right now with COVID, our challenge is to provide optimum correct nutrition at the bedside, and when where the dietitian cannot reach also at time because of certain problems. So that is the time when we are using these supplements. We are using these supplements for our enteral feeding patients, where we can ensure bedside nutrition,
Yeah.
correct dosage, and where the nursing staff can, prepare these feeds right there in the correct quantity and administer it to the patient. And for that, don't even ask me what all I am doing to just make things available. Yeah,
Yeah.
but that is my job.
We
I'm
totally appreciate it.
proud of it. So that is
Yeah.
okay. Um,
Oh, we are totally appreciating it. I
Definitely.
mean, I know you're not mentioning it, but you're helping people get donations. You're requesting companies to actually make it affordable for them. You doing that selflessly on your own, self-motivated. That shows how our healthcare professionals are
of
right now.
dietitians do that. It is not only me. So whoever is
Yeah,
working in the
yeah,
hospital, they all are
yeah.
doing a great job.
Yeah, but so, ma'am, Benjamin, ma'am, on that, how does the safety sort of, because one side there is safety, the supplements are safe right now because, or even otherwise, in terms of any nosocomial other infections, secondary infections that patients can get vis-a-vis the safety in terms of organs, in terms of kidney overload or it affecting other organs. How would you weigh that?
Yes, I think in the current scenario, to add to what Jashu said, we should be using for COVID patients the oral nutrition supplement and not use the kitchen feeds, whether we afford or not. It is mandatory. First, to get the predicted nutrients. Okay,
Yes.
plus, these patients who have already acquired this infection
Yeah.
have pre-existing malnutrition.
Yeah.
How are you going to correct malnutrition pre-existing? Unless and until we correct the pre-existing malnutrition or whatever deficiency the patient has, our treatment is of no use. And this particular infection doesn't have a treatment. So it's all nutrition which is going to treat. So correct the deficiencies, give whatever is deficient, improve the nutritional status with the oral nutrition supplement, which is completely healthy, hygienic, and you can predict the nutrient content. This much of calorie, this much of protein, this much of carbohydrate. I can't go wrong. If it is a requirement, if a 1500 calories, 60 gram protein, and further whatever micronutrient, zinc for immune wound healing, I must add that from the supplement. I cannot add that from food because I cannot have the specific dose for it. Plus, there are a lot of infection in mixing, in cooking. The food which we are getting presently, we do not know the source. Okay, so it can be infected. It will be with lot of other impurities. So patients, admitted patients, or a very sick patients, as per the SPEN guidelines, we should be only giving the oral nutrition supplement, that is the commercial formula. I'm not promoting it, but that is the only treatment for to combat this condition and to bring the patients out from severely ill condition to the ward and then the discharge. So that is, I'm all for it, and this is not only what I am saying, this is evidence based, level A evidence. Okay, so SPEN guidelines are almost most of the European guidelines, and now we have Indian guidelines. The Indian Society, Critical Care Society guidelines also say the same thing, that we need to use the supplements, the commercial supplement to treat our seriously ill patients.
And I think Geeta ma'am did point out a very good input in terms of glutamine, and glutamine and arginines really are very in terms of quality of protein. When we talk about, I think we need to focus on the amino acids that they offer. I would actually go to Neeti ma'am now and ask her normally what is her prescription to her patients when they come to her with any joint or muscle pain, especially I know there are a lot of people who want to lose weight and are trying all different things at whatever age. And I know you were some time ago even talking about the fact that people at 60 having comorbidities, and now people are having it at 50. I mean, people keep trying these odd whatever, not fit things for them, and when they land up to you at you, then what's your normal prescription for them?
So there are, I think, two issues. Just adding to what Salome ma'am said and she mentioned, when it comes to supplementation for hospitalized patients, it's of course it is different, and we have complete control over them in terms of what is being fed to them. But when we are talking about patients who walk in the clinic, as you mentioned, in the current scenario, a lot of patients, because in absence of a vaccine or in absence of a tablet cure, they are turning towards nutrition or towards kind of boosting their immunity, as they say, and they are popping in supplements. So vitamin C is commonly known as something that's like an immune booster. So just a word of caution here that vitamin C is very important. It's great, but you need to calibrate the dosage, because excess vitamin C intake can lead to precipitating the risk of having kidney stones. Similarly, vitamin D, not in these times, but over the couple of last few years, we have seen that there's a lot of talk of vitamin D deficiency. So everybody's been just, again, popping in vitamin D pills. And now we are seeing the other scenario where a lot of patients are coming in with hypervitaminosis, where the vitamin D levels are way higher than the prescribed values, which will have a lot of deleterious effects on the system. So that's where I think our role as nutritionists come in. Patients or public needs to kind of get advice from healthcare professionals before just buying and popping in the supplements. I think that is important. And when it comes to bone health, people with joint pain, I think they don't like to hear this, but the most important treatment for this is weight loss for majority of the patients. But that's not something they want to kind of hear. They would rather have a tablet which kind of magically, the pain vanishes and they can start running, kind of doing whatever they wanted to do. But unfortunately, till you're not ready for a surgery, weight loss is your best treatment mode, which could be supplemented then with certain supplements which Jayashree mentioned, chondroitin sulfate, glucosamine, vitamin D, calcium, omega-3 also, but these all have to be calibrated by healthcare professionals. They can't be just taken in, buying online.
Yeah, exactly. So also that means there is a lot of onus on the people who are actually formulating these, and boastfully, I will want to just add, I'm not doing any selling here, neither am I mentioning any supplements here, but weighing that is something which we do very, very carefully, and a lot of evidence based inputs, and then formulate something. So don't have hundreds of supplements just because you have the liberty to manufacture them, but give responsible evidence based formulas, so that will actually help the people, and it will not affect, just as you mentioned, will not affect their kidneys. So and kidneys, liver, there are so many organs that actually can get affected because of nutritional supplements also. I know that, and that's where we'll come to the question quickly. You mentioned how much to take when it comes to vitamin C or any other components. The RDA and the therapeutic view. These are two very different aspects, and then the interaction between the foods. So I would want Geeta ma'am to take the interaction bit, but anyone wants to more emphasize on the RDA and the therapeutic difference, because people don't understand that, and it's assumed based on whatever is available online that you're supposed to take high grade vitamin C right now. It's not recommended. We have to take it, or this is my take, but I'll first let you speak and then I'll talk. Yeah. Anyone wants to take it? Yeah.
Salome ma'am, we'll start from her.
Very rightly, she said it is a therapy and we have to do dose specific.
Yeah.
Niti rightly said. And RDA is for general population.
Yeah.
And when we talk as a population with comorbidity or any condition, then the doses are different. If you say vitamin C, just one example if I give you, if a diabetic patient takes the vitamin C, what is going on in Google Doctor or whatever is that, I think he will lose his kidneys for much earlier than what he will lose it after 25-30 years. So if more than 100 milligram of vitamin C is taken by a diabetic person, it will diffuse the nephrons and the renal insufficiency develops. So he goes into renal failure, or there's a likelihood that he will his kidneys will not function. So not only vitamin C, she also said vitamin D. Anything is excess is bad. And especially when we are dealing with a disease and the comorbidities, again the dose is different. For a critically ill, the dose is different. For a patient with infection, the dose is different. The patient with 2 or 3 comorbidities, the dose of a particular vitamin, mineral, trace element is totally different. In India, we are yet to come up with this exact doses as a therapy. So the word of caution for people or for us as a healthcare provider, we always tell them not to take unless it is advised. Now, if we say for the diabetic, we say they are taking metformin, so take B12. They go on taking, but it is not like that. If you are not absorbing B12, how much you are not, you should do the B12 level and then take B12. Plus elderly population. Elderly population, because of the absorption is very poor, every day take multivitamins. Like those other multi-level marketing people, they say, okay, take daily. Daily you take vitamins. It's not the need of the day. We just can't take any amount or any dose every day. It is specific dose for a specific condition. It's a therapy. Again, I will say therapy plus absorption takes again into the consideration that how is your gut. We are created by God like that when we are deficient, that nutrient is absorbed more from our food or even from what you take. So when we take a larger dose, it will be absorbed more. So then it will, instead of better, it will have the harm. So that's why we must always take it to the dose specific. Zinc, if you say 20 milligram, you can double it up to 40 milligram. There are doses for selenium, for immunity, or for critically ill patients like 70 microgram you can take. There are doses of beta carotene, vitamin A, and vitamin C. General population, yes, you can take like one shot of lime, 2 limes, 4 limes together, you will get at least about 200 milligram of vitamin C. So 200 to 500 if they take it. Normal population who do not have any condition, they can take it, but there is no need every day to take. Even if you take one fruit or two fruit a day, or as Niti mentioned, the rainbow plate, 5 colors, yellow, green, red, purple, this 5 colors if you take, then you get all the antioxidants, your vitamins, your minerals from that. But in today's scenario, I must tell the audience that our soil has lost its, you know
Yes, I was going to ask you, ma'am.
micronutrients are
Yes,
not there, and that is why if we are deficient, if you
yes,
can afford to do the levels, do the levels. If you are not afford to do levels, if you are feeling particular symptoms, that symptom can be recognized by a healthcare professional what it is due to, and that particular vitamin in a dose specific manner can be taken, like once in a week, twice in a week, thrice in a week, depending on your age, depending on your requirement and your condition.
yeah. So, so much deep insight, and more is going to come from Geeta ma'am. So, and that really viewers take a note that see how much deep she is into this after almost 4 to 5 decades of her practice, and that doesn't dawn to us by just reading some Google inputs. Don't realize and understand that there is so much deep insight. All these five nutritionists are here, and including me, that we are here to bring this to you and make you understand that there is high level deeper science to this, which has to be understood. Over to you, Geeta ma'am, in terms of interactions of between foods and supplements, if you want to.
Saloni ma'am has highlighted wonderful therapeutic way of looking at nutrient-based nutrition. I would go to preventive way of looking at
Yes.
nutrition, preventive and wellness. So we are all well read. Every client who comes to me definitely knows a lot about food and nutrition. In fact, they keep telling us that we've read this, we've been
Yeah.
into this. So definitely, there's a lot of awareness because of the social media and good print media which is coming up. Now, what's important, I personally feel, is the awareness to create about quantitative approach towards the food. Every person should know what is my balanced diet quantity. We all know what is good, what is bad. Green tea is good, leafy vegetables are good, but how much? I think
Yes.
we want to
Yes.
emphasize. And I think these kind of platforms should promote more of quantitative approach of food. Like what is a breakfast serving you need for morning? Because if you're working, if you're not working, you're an athlete, you're a growing child, you're a geriatric patient. So I think each one of us need to understand our own daily balanced diet in quantitative terms. And I think we nutritionists who are more qualified and who are actually learn will help each one of us to understand what is my daily diet. So nutrient based nutrition will come from looking at what is my balanced diet. Step one is the balancing of nutrition. Two is, am I eating my balanced plate? Every state of our country has a diverse food habit. And if you look at the food science behind it, this food definitely complements each other in our own plate. I mean, we are now into an era of fast foods and ready to eat foods, like roti sabji is there. But if you add a buttermilk to it or a dal to it, it combines the hydration factor to it, and my food becomes more easily digestible. And two, I add some amount of micronutrients or some amount of functional foods to my diet if I complement it with other foods. So I think we should go back to our own science, our own cuisine, and understand what is the combination factor of the food. You just can't make it dal chawal, like Niti mentioned about one pot meal. But she did say you need add rice, you need to add vegetables, you need to add oil. So if you look at it, there is a combination of the 5 food groups which we are talking about. If you combine this, the bioavailability or the absorption factor of the nutrient improves there. Very importantly, where you eat, how you eat, how much you eat. So it's a very complex mechanism of absorption in our body. And I think we should first understand our basics of eating, behavior modification, combination of foods, and then I think there's a way to go. And this is what we fail to work on in a personalized setup.
Anyone wants to add any comments on that? Because it's
Just
wonderful
to add,
description.
what Geeta was saying, the problem with us is, uh, uh, there are times when a particular food becomes suddenly a superfood, and then
Yeah.
everybody is talking about that nutrient or that food without giving much thought to the science behind it or the quantity. As she rightly mentioned, we need to do the quantification. See, as far as even functional foods are concerned, people will come to us, as ma'am was saying, say for example, patient with diabetes. Now they will read somewhere methi seeds are good, or they will read bhindi is good. So without realizing ki just eating four danas of methi is not going to yield any kind of result, because methi is the most studied functional food. That's why I'm taking the name of methi seeds. But there is a certain quantity of those methi seeds which you need to take for its that therapeutic use, or for that benefit for which you are supposed to take it. So quantification of nutrients and quantification of whatever is there on your plate, knowing what nutrients you are eating is very, very important. And again, that drug nutrient, if we are for example talking about popping in calcium pills, which are most routine supplements which we normally do. Now there are different factors. For example, you are saying the dose of calcium is say 1000 milligram, but if you take that 1000 milligram at one go, it is not going to be absorbed,
Yeah.
right? You need to take it in divided doses. So
Yeah.
likewise, there are so many things. Like if you are right now, we are in a setup when we are because we are locked down, so we tend to sort of to reduce the stress, either increase the consumption of coffee. Again, that caffeine is going to decrease the absorption of calcium. So just because you are taking that supplement in certain quantity is not going to help you. You and that is why you require the help of a qualified dietitian
Yeah.
for that. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that brings us to that exact point which we want to drive today. I have a few questions from of course the viewers, quite a few of them actually. So first question actually comes from, and I will mention her name evidently because she's Dr. Rekha Bhatkande. She's the medical director at Shushruta Hospital. She has been there just as Benjamin ma'am. She's been there for more than 4 decades, and a great lady who is doing a lot of work in the hospital. She has done a lot of work in nutrition at Shushruta also, how to improve it for the patients. And her question here, because I know she works a lot in multiple sclerosis as well, her question is, can nutritional advice be mandated for the elderly to prevent both osteoporosis and sarcopenia? And I will let anyone of you take it.
I think let Neeti take this because she's been.
Yeah, totally.
Yes, of course, we would have suggestions for both the conditions for the elderly population. Talking about osteoporosis, yes, calcium intake, vitamin D levels to be checked, and appropriate supplementation to be given. A lot of times in the elderly, they're not able to tolerate dairy products because of the lactose intolerance. So we would have to provide them with alternative dietary sources of calcium, where again the role of a nutritionist comes in big way. Suggestions also on the appropriate calcium supplements. A lot of times we see patients taking calcium and iron supplement together. Because they haven't been told, that they need to be taken separately, depending on whether it's calcium carbonate or whether it's any other salt, malate, the absorption, the timing of taking the supplement are different. Some have to be taken on empty stomach, others have to be taken after the meals. So again, these are very important points. Also, weight-bearing exercise wherever it's possible in the elderly, extremely important for preventing or maintaining the loss in osteoporosis, and very often weight loss, if that is possible, even if it is very, very gradual, even at 1 kilo a month, it will just help. Sarcopenia, as Salome ma'am said, perhaps all of us are sarcopenic. Indians as in general are sarcopenic. The very low muscle volumes, part of it we can blame it on our genes, but it is accentuated by our low protein intake. So the protein intake needs to be augmented big time. And when it comes to the elderly, if there are challenges of dentures, there are challenges of cooking, various challenges, then again our expertise comes in as to how to increase the protein intake. Very often, again, they can't tolerate dairy.
Yeah.
If they are vegetarians, they can't tolerate dal because they find them too gassy, heavy.
Yeah.
So these are the challenges that we need to kind of
absolutely.
address.
So there is one more question in the same regards, and I would want Benjamin Madam to actually respond on it, because someone has asked which collagen is ideal for osteoarthritis, and I know we sort of believe that bovine. My suggestion to them would be bovine, but there are so many different types of fish collagens and denatured collagens that are coming up in the market, and they are very new to the market, whereas bovine has actually been there for a while. What's your suggestion? I mean, if there's one question from one of the viewers.
Yeah. Before that, I would add to the mandate what was asked. So 1200 to 1800 milligram of calcium is required for a geriatric population or for a osteoporotic, with vitamin D, which is to be taken every month 60K. And then if you take also vitamin D, and there is one K2, vitamin K2 is also required for this absorption. So for geriatric population, those specific is given, because today's cardiologists, endocrinologists do not allow supplementation of calcium to a higher dose.
Yeah.
So we say that safer is 500 milligram as a supplement, and rest should come as an elemental calcium from the food. So that is one thing. For collagen, yes, bovine collagen is the most commonly used supplement for the collagen. And rather than collagen, there are certain nutrition aspect, like to increase the this collagen synthesis, like
Correct.
vitamin C, vitamin
Yes.
C. These are collagen synthesis. Plus, there is one hyaluronic acid, which increases your synovial fluid, which is generally causing you your joint pain and other things. So it's not only collagen taking is going to solve your inflammation in the knees or joints. So there are the entire aspect has to be looked for, and of course bovine collagen can be added if it is required. Okay, so some people are now also treating these people with different, the synthetic colostrum also. So they are also, there are treatments with that, but bovine collagen with vitamins and specific minerals for the collagen synthesis will, I mean, according to me, anybody can add to that, because I
Yeah,
have not used it. Yeah.
So one addition here is that, there are a lot of preparations where people are adding collagen in milligrams, okay, which has, frankly speaking, no meaning. Collagen has to be had in terms of 5 to 6 grams for it to have. So it is generally taken as a drink, as a sachet powder. So just to make your supplement, like a formulation fancy, just to add a name, you add collagen and add few milligrams. It does not have any beneficial effects. So I think that is something we need as health professionals to keep in mind.
Sure, that was apt input and apt answer to someone who asked it. The other question is there's one good question which is but of course there needs personalized advice for that. The question comes from Madhusmita Manu. She says, what's the best way to identify which food suits us and which doesn't, given the age factor, the right age to when it comes to age? That's the kind of question. It's very personalized in answer, right?
Yeah.
Anyone wants to comment on that? Which food suits us and which doesn't, and right age to do it?
I think Geeta can
take it.
Yeah.
Okay. Definitely, it's a personalized question. What's important is each one of us introspect what actually for us or not. You know what is suiting you and what doesn't. Make a list of food which doesn't suit you. If at all you're allergic to something, if you feel any gastric intolerance with something, make a list of it. Try to identify the factors. Go to a specialized person. Try to tell him that these are the foods which I was able to digest earlier. Now I'm not able to digest. So this is how I think you can always look at a personalized health from that point of view. But if you ask me per se generalized instruction, I think we are born to digest each and every food, from gluten to milk we've been eating from childhood. Suddenly to develop an intolerance to any kind of a food, I think we need to very personalized and blame it on the environment, definitely genetics. But genetics was there on day one, and genetics is there today also. So it's
Correct.
environment which is playing a major role. And you
Yeah.
can be an expert and start personalizing your aspects
Yeah.
of food. Yeah.
That really is that's a satisfying answer, absolutely. And there are a couple of more questions, and one question is, of course, controversial, but I'll go to the other one first. It says today, or maybe we'll go there the last. There's one question which I know people do use Herbalife as a supplement, and someone is asking, is that good, bad? Question on it, and I don't know if you all want to comment or not. It's up to you. I mean, I would have framed it this way: is it useful, safe? That could be a question that
I
someone
think
has.
on this forum we should not talk about any
Exactly.
particular name or branded
Exactly.
things.
I,
And
I agree.
I don't know what goes in that supplement. Unless and
Right.
until I know what is this composition of it, how can I comment on it? So it's better
Absolutely.
not to comment on it.
Bang on answer. I mean, I think that's what the answer should be. The last question I think we would take today is, today nutrition education is considered low from clinical expectations. What's your opinion on this?
I don't understand. What is it?
The question is that uh, I'll read it again. It per se says that today nutrition education, it's not given so much of importance when it's in terms of clinical expectation. So
I
what
would.
that means is, should we be actually more should we do any initiatives to propagate it more, because people are not very open to listening to nutrition in the right way, that probably we are, I think our attempt is towards it today, that in a proper knowledge and evidence based way, instead of trying to just talk and share ideas. um, is there,
I
can
would
you
rather,
actually?
I would rather say it is misinterpreted, because there is every Tom, Dick, and Harry talks about nutrition,
Yes.
Correct,
making it
correct.
more low.
Yeah.
If you go to a qualified personal or a professional, then
Mm-hmm.
I think it is equal to clinical expectation. Today, doctors are giving more importance because we have evidence based therapy.
Yeah.
Nutrition as a medical nutrition therapy as an outcome strategy. So, how can I say that nutrition knowledge is low in clinical expectation? It is a clinical nutrition. So, what today we are on this platform are all clinical nutritionists, and we are telling that how clinical nutrition will help whether in disease, fitness, or in prevention or treatment. So that is a prime important. In fact, it's a cornerstone of management of disease and cornerstone of prevention of a disease, whether it is infection, whether it is COVID-19 or any other infection also. So I don't think we should judge it. But there are some people in the society or the media is making it so hype that the misleading information is given to the public, and there are so many short courses coming up where people just do from any stream of study they have done it, and then they talk big about nutrition. So I think they should not be there. Only the qualified registered nutritionist or a dietitian should talk nutrition as a therapy and as a prevention on a social media or even as a healthcare professional.
Uh, Glad you said
I,
that, ma'am. I'm
yeah,
sure I know everyone else would want to
I just
add on.
want to add one thing, Rajeshri, here.
Yeah.
Uh, First of all, just one correction. In my introduction, you said I'm the treasurer of IDA Mumbai.
Dr. Niti
So,
is.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm the co-convener.
Yeah.
Anyways, so coming to the point of nutrition knowledge not being given importance, I take it it is up to us to make this knowledge available to the society. What I strictly feel is why people are turning to other non-qualified people is it is just because they are so much there,
Yeah.
everywhere on all kinds of social media. So from IDA Mumbai, and I'm sure even IDA National, we are trying to develop and go to different social media platforms to popularize and to let these people know about the evidence based nutrition what ma'am is talking about. There is so much research that is going on. Unfortunately, what happens is that research, that work does not go to the general public. They are not aware what is going on in the field of nutrition. So
Yeah.
now it is our endeavor to take this, because that is the way things work in
Yeah.
today's setup. So on our side, we are trying to do that. I'm sure Niti or Gita ma'am would
So
like to
I
add
would
to that.
definitely want, it's going to be one more session. I didn't even open the genetic topic up with Geeta ma'am. It's going to be a separate session. I think a disease specific session should be a separate one. A functional food versus therapeutic nutrition should be another session altogether from all of us, so that people understand in depth. But maybe my last question, and then we'll go to the closing remarks, is to Niti ma'am, that from an angle of being an idea office bearer, and sorry for the mistake in the introduction, I had realized that even then, but as an idea office bearer, and plus having had experience outside the country, the global experience that you have, what would you sort of advise to people in terms of what just Jayashree ma'am said, that the awareness portion, and how it's perceived there, and how better can we use it here?
I think when in terms of if we compare globally, we are kind of catching up in terms of our having our SOPs in place and having the whole training and even the practice in hospitals more structured. So we are kind of working towards it, and in fact everybody here are a big office bearers of the idea, and everybody's been
Yeah,
working
ma'am
hard
has
for
also
many
been
years.
on it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So, but I think one very important point I want to make is that in the current age, what we are saying is that just by having a fancy website or having a fancy Instagram account where you post every other day, that does not translate into the right, correct nutrition information. Okay,
Yeah.
so for the lay person, I think this is very, very important, that just because somebody has a huge social media presence need not necessarily mean that she is or he's qualified, or everything that he's saying is kind of correct. So the public needs to look out for the qualified people. They may be silent workers, they may not be having making big noises, but you need to go for that to get the right advice.
So on that, I would just want all of you to give your closing remarks, maybe a minute or more of it, in two aspects. One, when drugs fall short, we all always have had that wisdom as nutrition practitioners, but this wisdom had suddenly dawned to a lot of us, and what is the advice in terms of personalized and integrative advice that you would suggest to these people? And Niti ma'am just mentioned about it a little bit in brief, but your closing remarks on that. And the second thing is, of course, in terms of this initiative or this program that we had today, and your input, so that we can better it.
Not from Samalomi ma'am.
Of course, we have to start with Benjamin ma'am.
So of course, it's a very good platform, and we should have more of this sort of discussions on Facebook Live or other medias, that people should know who are the qualified professionals, registered dietitian, nutritionist, or a clinical practitioners, nutrition practitioners, who are having the authentic evidence-based knowledge to pass it on to public for their need, individual need, family need, community need. Of course, all the needs can be met from these professionals. Plus, there are what you were saying is the entire the concept of nutrition, because of what is available or what is being hyped. People should look for the authentic information from only professionals. So they should check the credentials of the people they are going.
Yeah.
see what are the credentials of the person you are going for an advice, whether that person is an authentic or a professional, then you go and ask.
Okay, I think ma'am's voice is breaking off. Meanwhile, I think one of you can
super specialist. So there are people and then we can go to that person and then get the particular specific advice.
Sure, that's great, ma'am. Thank you so much. I think the next seniority wise, you all know who's the next senior. I don't want to say older. Geeta and Neeti ma'am don't want to decide. I think
we also don't know. So
Geeta ma'am, I think you can go ahead. Geeta ma'am, you want to go ahead?
Okay.
Yeah.
I look at it differently, Rajshri. I feel food in India is happiness, celebration, socialization. We look food at something. And when we want to hear somebody who says that, okay, this is good for your health. I'll give you an example of mango because we're in the mango season. If somebody says mango is good for someone, we feel good about it and people get attracted to that factor that, okay, somebody has told us what I want to hear. So I think we should be getting out of all this thought process that food can be comfort and happiness, but food is also a therapy most of the times. And you should know that how much mango, is it really good? I think it's a consumer awareness. It has to get the onus to the public, where they have to work out that till now something was not good and somebody says this is good. So is it really authentic? Because just because I want to eat mangoes, I'm listening to her and I like her, I think that attitude has to change. And we have to start looking at creating an awareness in public that go back to the science. Nutrition is a science. Nutrition, food and diet, I think we need to combine all these factors and present it differently rather than just looking at somebody saying that because food is not toxic. But we have to look at it from other point of view. So I think it's more about to the public who have to look into the awareness and go back to the nutrition science, and it's available everywhere. And plus we are there. Thank you.
So that food for mood and food as a science really needs to be taken forward. I think, Jayashree ma'am, you want to go forward? Because I think
just last one line. Nutrition holds a dominant role in our life from birth right till the end. So it should get its due importance. And suddenly one day you cannot wake up and say that now I'm going to eat, right kind of food, or when the damage is already done. So it begins right from when you are in mother's womb. That is the role of nutrition. So enjoy your food, but anything and everything in excess is always bad. Remember that.
So lockdown should actually be used as an opportunity to going back to all that, and all of us are actually available right now online for a online consult if you want face to face, and True will be very happy to facilitate it if you need it. I'll let Geeti ma'am close with the last points.
Oh yes, as everybody has agreed, basically we need to. Food is our friend, and in the Indian context, for us, food is everything. Whether it is a celebration, whether it is an event which wedding, whether somebody is passed an exam and come first, it's always about food. So we need to have a very good relationship with food. Food is our friend, it's not our foe. But at the same time, moderation is the key. If you're looking out for that balanced diet, everybody asks, what is a balanced diet? I mean, balanced diet is eating everything in quantities. There is no magic to this. So it's a variety of foods, but in calibrated quantities. And that's what I would like to end with. Thank you, Rajashri. We had a wonderful time, all of us together on the same platform, and I hope it was useful.
I think that was the idea, to for us to come together as well, have a good time ourselves, and you actually ended it pretty well, saying it's science, it is celebration, enjoy it, and but at the same time, as all of you said, it is molecular science. It has a lot of biochemistry behind it, and it's very, very complex. So it needs a personalized integrative advice when it comes to any diseases that you're facing. And especially in these kind of situations, we realize it more that, you know, if you have to build I normally say hour of nutrition to build the power inside you. And that's most critical in this pandemic times, and also otherwise in terms of so many comorbidities that we have. I will actually take one suggestion and input, or rather, which, you know, that has come out of the session is, you know, there is too much of noise that happens on Facebook, where people are posting one post every day or multiple posts and creating groups. I think I'm on that mission. True Wealth might look like, you know, it's on the similar kind of mission, but it is on a mission to take authentic knowledge from such qualified and experienced professionals, and create the noise of this authentic, personalized, evidence-based, integrative advice. And I will continue to take this torch forward, which we have just sort of lit with a couple of these sessions. Thank you very much, each of you, to begin with Benjamin ma'am, and we have had multiple conversations on this earlier as well. Geeta ma'am, Neeti ma'am, and our COVID warrior Jayashree ma'am. So thank you very, very much for coming up. We end here, but we'll be back soon. Thank you very much, viewers, for appreciating us, putting those questions forth, and coming up here to encourage us.
Thank you.